Hello, everyone, and welcome to Z Talk. This is Henry Zaldivar, your host today. Again, I'm with IT Savvy. For those that don't know the company, I work for a client executive here, and from time to time, I talk about technology, business, and leadership, and other topics. Today, I have a very interesting guest, Greg Schenk. He's in Columbus, Ohio, and he is a commercial real estate expert. And he's going to talk to everyone about, some of the things that go on in the tenant and leasing world and other business strategies that he can help with. So, he's the man of the day, not me. So, Greg, the floor is yours. Thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you very much for having me, Henry, and welcome everyone. My goal today in the next few minutes is to give you whet your appetite, give you a taste of what you need to do to make your company successful and improve your bottom line through your real estate facilities. This is year 35 for me in the commercial real estate business, and I'm an exclusive tenant rep broker. And what does that mean? That means I exclusively represent tenants, buyers, and investors in the commercial real estate arena. I don't do any listings, so I give companies and individuals an unprejudiced view of the market. We help companies put together a strategic plan and then implement that plan in all different types of real estate scenarios, from opinions of values of what properties are worth, lease versus buy scenarios, lease renewals, which about 75 to 80% of tenants renew their existing lease. And with COVID today, a lot of our clients for the past year, we've been restructuring existing leases to make them right size or more efficient as more people co-work or work from home or hybrid or whatever terminology you want to call it. And then we do site selection and lease or purchase negotiations, as well as helping wealthy individuals buy investment property all over the country. I have a network of 200 experts all over the world that does what I do in each market. And I've got a think tank group of 10 gentlemen that we all left the largest company in the country 10 years ago. And so this year we're celebrating 25 years of my company, the Schenk company.
Congratulations.
This other group. Yes, it's something I'm very, very proud of. So my website, for those of you that want more information and articles of things of that nature, is schenkcompany.com, SCHENK company.com. And my speaking, teaching, and training is just schenktraining.com. So we've been traveling around the country for 25 years, doing seminars, webinars, podcasts, and one-on-one coaching, everything from high school kids, teaching them financial literacy, to colleges, to continuing ed for realtors, attorneys, and accountants, to helping everyday professional people, again, put together a strategy for their real estate offices, and then implementing that with whatever the best case should be. So what's really important right now is actually having that strategy. So many companies, just like so many people in life, aimlessly wander. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, they'll get a notice from their landlord and say, your lease is up in 60 days. What are you going to do? And by that time, the landlord's got you like this. In one of my seminars I do called the Top 10 Mistakes List, number one on that list is time, starting the process early enough to really be able to negotiate from a position of strength, whether you're going to renew or restructure a lease or relocate. So by the time that landlord sends you the notice asking if you're going to renew, you really are not having enough time to make a decision one way or another, to research the market, to see what needs to be done. For a small to medium-sized client, we like 6 to 8 months. For a larger client, it could be 12 to 18 months. Last year, I helped a division of the Supreme Court state of Ohio, was over 2 years from start to finish. And then sometimes the build out and permits, especially with what COVID happened, really slowed down that process. And then today, with all the material shortages and increase in prices, as I'm sure all your listeners have heard, that has made things much more challenging, because no matter how good a job we do negotiating the rent and the incentives like free rent or a moving allowance or added tenant improvement allowance, those tenant improvement costs have gone up dramatically. Most people have heard lumber, for example, both of the residential and commercial has gone up 200 to 400%. Drywall, which is very important in office space build out, has gone up substantially. Plywood, other materials, steel, cement, labor have all gone up. So that puts a much more challenge on everybody to get the deal done, because you might have to do a longer lease term than you normally would do to get your costs covered. If not, the tenant has to come out of pocket, which none of my clients ever want to do. Okay. So in a nutshell, the service that we provide does an investigation to see where's the company been, where are they now, and where do they want to go. For example, they were in 10,000 feet 3 years ago. They grew to 12,000 feet. And then COVID hit and the shit hit the fan, and half their people said, you know what? I want to work from home. So now they think they only need about 6,000 feet. So what do they do if they have 5 years left on a lease when they're paying on 10,000 feet and they only need 6? So I'll come in, and number one, we usually get a space planner to lay out what is it you really need, and can we reconfigure your existing space without too much disruption to make it palatable for the ongoing future, no matter what that lease term is left. And or can we restructure the lease, either move the tenant to another space in the building or another building owned by the same landlord in the same market, or we can do things like a lease buyout or a sublease to get them into a situation that's going to work better. So we looked that over, and then we have 2 forms on our website. If you go to schenkcompany.com, we have 1 form for tenants and 1 form for investors. That's a who, what, why, when, and where form to really dig down to the type of space you want, from image, access, visibility, parking, security, which floor, do you need walkability, anything that's your hot button. And as we do that, we go from a shotgun to a rifle, so we don't waste anybody's time. So there may be 30 opportunities in the particular market that you want to do. We typically are narrowing that down to 4 or 5 that specifically meet the client's needs, and then use that as a lever to either negotiate better terms where they are currently, or help them relocate to one of those that's going to best suit both their short and long-term goals.
Okay, obviously with the COVID situation that we dealt with last year and into this year, and you mentioned that comment about downsizing, and there are a lot of companies out there that are you seeing as that being a lot more of your business these days, and consulting in that area and helping them go from a 12 to a 6,000, or because everybody that I talk to, either in the technology industry or in other industries, they're experiencing this as we speak, and many are. I'm glad we're doing this show today about this, because they're challenged with how to get out of my lease, or we can't walk away, because obviously there are some legal ramifications there. So they need some guidance. And so are you
well,
seeing
that's why our business came along in Ohio. The agency disclosure came along in 1989. All the states around the country adopted it by the early 90s. So it lets each party know who represents whom in the transaction. Mm-hmm. So we'll go in as the market there. We probably know the landlord. We probably know the leasing agent. And we really discuss, here's the goals, here's what we want. And I'm all about win-win negotiations on there. Mm-hmm. And so what we try to do is really get to understand, well, what are the options? Some landlords have money to do a build out in this expensive environment. Some don't, but can lower the rate. It really depends on where they bought the building in the cycle, how long they've had it. Do they still have a lot of debt on it? So I've dealt with literally every kind of landlord, but then we'll feel out the scenario. And a lot of people still haven't done that strategic plan. They're still trying to put it, tons of procrastination. In 35 years of doing this, again, most people, the CFO left, the new CFO comes, they don't even know where their current lease is. So I do a no cost review of their lease. Sometimes they have to go call the landlord to get it because we don't even know where it is. So they have no clue. So the first thing we do is give them a baseline of how their lease stacks up with other tenants in their building and their submarket. So their basement rent might be good, but their operating expenses may be too high, or the building may need a new HVAC system, new filters to take COVID standards. They may need more parking, better security. They may want signage for, visibilities, things of that nature. So every company is totally different. I was with an engineering firm this week. They wanted walkability. They had outgrown their current office. Actually, they were bringing in more people. Their current landlord was not working with them. They didn't take care of the restrooms, little small things that should be a piece of cake. The landlord had their eyes on bigger developments they were working on. This was a small building. So they said, okay, fine. We're going to go find some place. And we toured 5 buildings, and 2 are very good options for them. So number one, I should say, we have more sublease space available in America today than we ever have had in the 60 years the data banks that I use track it.
Wow.
So any market that your client would say, we'd like to dip our toes in the water and open up an office in Toledo, Ohio, or Tulsa, Oklahoma, or Tucson, Arizona, chances are there's some subleases there that you can get well below market. Now, there is pros and cons for subleases. Usually you're not getting any build out allowance. You're taking it as is, or you're doing the improvements. But if you can get something for 50 or 60 cents on the dollar for 2 to 3 years, it's letting you get into a market and say, okay, yeah, this is something we need. And then we can usually negotiate with the landlord to either rip up the sublease and do a longer term lease, or get things like a first right of refusal or an option to expand, again, depending on where that company sees their headcount growing or shrinking. And then the other big thing we have going on today is record low interest rates. And there's SBA, Small Business Association loans out there that if you're an owner user or want to have your own property, you can get in for 10% down as long as you're a 50% occupant of the building. And the SBA portion is locked in for 25 years at insanely low interest rates. To put it in perspective, my first deal ever in the 80s was at 17% interest.
I remember homes back then were in the double digits.
And my first home that I bought was at almost 9%. And I just looked at something the other day for residential. There's some deals under 2%, and for commercial, under 4%. Typically, commercial is 1 to 1.5% more, again, depending on the credit and the lender and what you're exactly trying to do, the amount of risk. And it's much difference between an owner user and an investment property for how much you have to put down and what the terms and conditions will be. So the bottom line is, whether you're leasing, whether you're owning, or whether you're investing, is to take your time and put together a strategic plan. And again, most companies are not doing that. And then really seeing what's available out there. So we have one of our experts will do a data bank search and say, okay, here's 4 or 5 within your criteria, within your boundaries, within your budget that are going to be available at the timing that you're looking at. And then we really find out, is it what they say they are? And you find out 2 of the landlords are flakes. One of them's got a bad reputation. One of them's going to be selling the building as an investment, but there's 1 or 2 that are really good. So typically that's how we're ferreting it out to narrow it down to get people exactly what they want. But the time to not procrastinate, you can set yourself up for the next 10 years if you do something this calendar year. So time is definitely of the essence. Interest rates can't stay low forever. The Fed announced yesterday they think they're going to be 2 bumps within the next 2 years. Even if they go up a point, they're still pretty darn good. So on the buy side. On the investment side, there's more money than there is deals out there. So many people are paying a premium for the investment. But for the sake of this conversation with tenants, and I deal with mainly privately held companies, I don't deal with too many Fortune 500 or 1,000 unless I'm referred that from another big city. All my business is from people that either know my reputation or have heard me speak and teach. So I'm very blessed in that respect. And I get a wide variety of types of companies that I help with, which I really enjoy because I'm typically dealing directly with the owner or the CFO of the company.
It's definitely, and given today's market, this is a very timely conversation that we're having today, Greg, and I really do appreciate you, reaching out and, getting on the show. And And I think for everybody that's viewing this, I know there are a lot of executives out there they're in my network, a lot of CEOs and owners. And I would definitely recommend that you reach out to Greg when I post this video on my YouTube and on my LinkedIn account. I'm going to, with your permission, Greg, obviously put your website on there. And if you have any other contact information, let me know what that is, and I'll put it there so they can reach out, because I think leveraging a person like Greg and his company in this market and the craziness going on with the leases and subleases and like I said, the interest rates and the build outs and the cost of materials these days, why go through the headache of trying to figure it out yourself? I mean, let's just go to an expert person that's been there, done that, still doing it, and teaches it. So I would urge my network to reach out to Greg, engage him, and I think Greg's here to help. Just like I help as much as I can with IT and technologies. Greg knows his industry inside out, and definitely a great resource.
I will add one thing, because you brought a really good point up. Most companies that try to do it themselves, the analogy I use, it's like going to court without an attorney or having your taxes done without a CPA. You could do it, but why would you? The risk factor. You don't know the market. You sign a lease every 5 to 10 years, the market changes dramatically. What you may think is a great deal is actually a terrible deal, and you've left free rent, other incentives, added tenant improvement allowance, lower rates, cap and control of operating expenses. The other thing we do is, if you don't already have a set of trusted advisors in the process, I act as the quarterback of the process, but a real estate attorney, not a general attorney, an accountant that understands real estate, a commercial banker, not a general banker, an insurance agent to get the right clauses within the lease, and people like a contractor, an architect, space planner that I mentioned earlier. We've got about 25 of these, but those 5 or 6 that I just mentioned are the real crucial ones. So if you've already got that relationship, great. But if you don't, it's crucial that you have that to help you for your business to really grow and prosper. Without it, first of all, you're wasting a great deal of your time. Whatever a CEO or CFO values their time at, my normal process is 80 to 100 hours. So if that CEO values their time, they don't want to waste 80 to 100 hours. And if not, again, they're really doing a crapshoot of what kind of terms and conditions. And sometimes egos get in the way, and you can be a very good expert in one field and obviously know nothing about it because you're not doing it often enough. And after doing this almost 900 times for a variety of things, and within my think tank group, I mean, each of us has 30 some plus years of experience. So we've got over 300 years of experience. If there's an area outside of my expertise, I can easily call them in. But yes, I appreciate it very much. Again, my website is schenkcompany.com. That's SCHENK.com. We have 2 forms under contact and get started, one for tenants and one for investors. And all my contact information is on there. Please call me anytime, whether it's for coaching, seminars, or your company wants a no-cost review of your current facilities anywhere around the world.
Well, Greg, then you closed it out perfectly for me. So thank you again for being on the show. And thank you, my Z-Talk viewers, for your continued support of these videos. I hope you're finding the content relevant and something that you could use in your daily business. In this scenario, obviously, Greg spoke very, very well about his capabilities and his experience. So definitely reach out to him. And Greg, again, thank you once again for being on the show. And, I found a friend in Columbus, Ohio. So I'll let you know as I talk to people around town and refer you some business.
Wonderful. Have a great weekend. And we look forward to helping you again soon.
Thank you. Happy Father's Day, by the way.
Thanks. You too. Have a great day. All right. Bye-bye.